Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Great to see you.
We're on number 31.
Yes.
We've got quite an inventory. I keep talking about that, but you guys, there are some great ones all the way along the way. And I would just encourage somebody after you watch or listen to this one,
Yeah.
um, just let yourself wander through the other ones. They're not. I mean, they are getting better, I think, in a lot of ways, but the earlier ones were really good too. There's probably, I would venture to say, there's something for everyone in every podcast, every episode we've offered.
Mhm. I think that's true. And it really is, I want to call it an energetic library, even if you don't even know what that means. But there's so much that gets offered, there's so much opportunity in these episodes. And we hit basically every single level: emotional, spiritual, physical. We cover all the bases, which I love. So
My body's
please
very
visit.
plasmatic.
It's true.
We got you covered.
Um,
Okay, so today we have what I think will be a really good one. And it started because after Janet and I recorded number 29, I was saying, oh, there was this whole other thing I was thinking about adding, but we were getting late on time. And she and I talked for like 8 to 9 minutes longer. And she's like, oh my God. So anyway, welcome to number 31. Turning into our parents. Turning into your mother, turning into your father, turning into somebody that you're just like, okay, I love them, but instant cringe factor, right? Okay, so the story I was telling Janet, and I don't think I'm the best storyteller, so please bear with me. I will try to give a succinct version. Um, but it is sad, and I know I've had so much seemingly sadness in my life. I've had a lot of joy in my life too, recently too. But anyway, one of our cats passed. We had an elder cat that it was the sad day. Body, just really shutting down, and it was really very obvious. And my younger daughter was basically lived with Max in her room, Max the cat, for like the past several years. And the cat had been really attached to our elder child for many years of his life and his time with us. But anyway, on the way to the vet with Max, the trip to the vet, right? Georgia tells me that her best friend Emma is going to meet us at the vet. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was just driving along. But inside, I'm creating all these stories.
mm,
And my story to myself was Georgia doesn't want to only be there with me during this very sad time. She needs her best friend there. So from that point on the drive to the vet to being at the vet, her best friend Emma arriving, us having our alone time with Max before the practitioner comes in and does what they do. I was like, "Do you want?" I said, I was hugging and kissing Max and talking to him and stuff, and I said, "Do you want me to go wait in the waiting room?" And Georgia looked at me and said, You don't want to stay for it?" And she looked confused. So then I started to get confused, and I was like, "Well, I just don't want to get in the way."
mm,
So part of my story was that sometimes my mom, in
mhm.
her awesomeness, can be very involved and sort of a little bit in your space sometimes out of love, desire, amazingness, expertise, ability to help probably anybody with anything. I was feeling like she asked her best friend to come because I was going to be too much in the
Mhm.
waiting in the room. So I said, "Well, I don't have to leave. I mean, I can stay." So I ended up staying. Um, and then like Jeff was traveling, my husband, Georgia's dad, and I said to him, Emma, she invited Emma to come when we were putting Max down. And it was some just kind of random conversation. I don't even remember why I mentioned it. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "That's interesting." He goes, "Huh." And then a couple days later, actually, it may have been a week later, I said something to Georgia about we were talking about my mom and sometimes the energy there, and I said, I love my mom, everybody knows that. But I do get concerned that sometimes I get a little bit too much in people's spaces. And I said to her, like when you asked Emma to be there when we put Max down, there was a part of me that felt like I was going to be too much and you would rather have Emma there than me. She put down whatever she was drinking and she looked at me and she goes, "You thought that I asked Emma to come when we were on our way to bring Max?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Well, yeah." And she kind of looked at me like, "Where did you come up with this idea?" And she goes, "No, Emma wanted to come." And I was just, my whole story, just like a fishing reel, just started to just unwind. And I was like, oh. And she said, and she just kind of was waiting for an explanation. And I was like, well, I had a whole story in my head that you had asked Emma because me and you and Max there just didn't feel right to you and you wanted somebody else there. And she goes, "No." And she's like almost laughing at me. And I'm kind of laughing at myself. And I'm like, God, that's just wild. Given especially my profession and what I do, that I was so, like making up stories right and left about me. But as many practitioners with these gifts know, sometimes you can see everything else really clearly, but seeing yourself sometimes takes a little work or isn't that obvious. Some lenses are on those foggy lenses. Anyway, so she basically explained to me that Emma wanted to be there. And she was like, "I was so glad you were there." And I said, "That's so good that we had this conversation because we're about to go on vacation and I probably would have been weird the whole vacation. Being all like insecure. It's like, is it okay if I'm exaggerating for just effect, but is it okay if I sit with you guys at the table? Can I sit next to you on the train? Am I too much? So sometimes when we are turning into our parents or almost like paranoid about being something we don't want to be, we get really unlikable and really unpleasant to be around. Insecurity, an insecure version of Jill is not my best Jill. I literally like I'm just like it's just I'm not relaxed. I'm not calm. I'm like, hey, how's everybody doing? You know. Anyway, so that's where we started off.
Oh, wow. I mean, I so appreciate you sharing this because there's so many side versions of this story. And it's so revelatory about those detours that we take. And I was just giggling thinking about, my mother, like turning into my mother because I love my mother. She's been gone for a very long time. And and I find that there are some characteristics of her that I don't want to be, right? Like I just I just don't. And there's other ones that I absolutely love and
Yeah.
adore about her. But the that story making ability
Mhm.
that we have, it just shows we've been talking a lot about unconsciousness. I mean, that's the stuff that kicks our butts a lot of time, right? Unconscious, subconscious stuff. And that's such a prime example, and that idea that I'm too much. Oh, is that just like saturated into the human condition or what? I mean, that's like yeah. Wow. Let's just illuminate that and shed some light and love into that. Any parts of ourselves that think that, because it prevents me from showing up. It's such a shutdown mechanism.
Yeah.
And I think it's so common. I mean, when I think about, I haven't been a parent to children. I have a dog and I've always had animals, but the overwhelm of parent really initiates a level of don't to your kids, right? That overwhelm. And that can be so intrinsically embedded that I'm too much. And really, it's my parents were effing overwhelmed. It's really the truth of it in a lot of cases, right? So it's such a interesting dynamic. Wow. So much there.
I'm also picking up that some people their concern is more that they're too little, right?
Oh,
So some
interesting.
people might be like, "Oh my God, I don't want to be too much," and some people are like, I don't want to be too little." So whatever the audience is just like, I love that we're laughing about it and just letting ourselves be very playful and warm and self-loving with ourselves and each other about it, because to me that's where this starts, right? When
Yes.
I look back and really start to dissect and kind of deconstruct what happened with Georgia, it's possible I never would have brought it up with her and said it in there was no accusations, there was a good amount of self-reflection, which I am really good at. And I mean, she's 19. I think with any mother daughter, there's some contentious years in there, and we had our version of ours. But I never doubted her love for me, and I know she never doubted my love for her. But we're at a super, just beautiful spot over there, especially over the past probably 3 years. So just her just authenticity, her realness, and her bluntness, which I love about her. Of, wait, what? And kind of, being comedic in a way was exactly what I needed. I never felt defensive as she was saying it. I was definitely pleasantly surprised. But had I not given some voice to whatever insecurity I had, I would have missed out on the opportunity to be informed about what was really going on with somebody I deeply care about.
Mhm.
Now, she's a safe space for me, right? So she would never take that vulnerability and, like, oh, you just handed me a weapon here and I'm going to use it on you. Some people in the world would. Oh,
Mhm.
you have an insecurity about turning in your mother? Oh, I've got a whole bunch of games I can play with you on that, right? There are people that you probably do not feel safe with, and I would encourage you to trust your instincts with that.
Mhm.
But with the safe space relationships where you have each other's only positive intentions for each other and really an underlayment of love with everything, that's a great space to explore. Just like sometimes I feel like I'm this in our relationship, and I don't know if I like that part of me. And just say it. You're not asking for anything from them. You're just honestly reflecting. And you might be very surprised by what comes up next.
Mhm.
You might be creating stories that are getting in the way of a further level of enjoyment in your relationships.
Yeah, it's a major doorway to intimacy.
Yeah. And again, we've said intimacy is not, we're not talking sexual. When we talk about it, we're talking about closeness. So thank you for saying that. I'll be quiet now because I want to hear more. It opens the door to intimacy. You're 100% right.
And that's God consciousness. That's
It
life
opens
force energy.
the
That's
walls.
unconditional love. It's so beautiful. Yeah, that, God, I just wanna breathe a little bit with that. Like, those potentials for intimacy, and I appreciate you differentiating the people that use information as weapons, because that also can be an unconscious pattern and that I've needed to identify, and I get a feeling about it most of the time. There's something about, like, I don't know if I should share this, right? And I might test it out like this much just to see how that works. But there have been times where my kind of automatic self protection mechanisms have prevented me from sharing in certain situations. And I
Yeah.
can see later that it's like, oh, thank goodness, because it would have been, not a good situation. This applies in every single relationship we have.
Yeah.
Every single one. And I wanna kinda put a plug out there that if you feel weirdness in relationships with people that are safe and that you do love, to check it out. And I
Let's,
tend to monitor my stories because I'm becoming more storyless. Like, I realize that stories can be such rationalization mechanisms or a
mm,
way to hold certain ways of being in the world in place, and that prevents me from experiencing newness and new things. So, I'm much less story-based than I have, and I love a good story, and every time I tell a good story, the things that come out of that are different. I mean, I can hear the same story from somebody and each time I get something else out of it, right? So it's not that I'm opposed to that because it allows for us to appreciate the colorfulness
Mm.
and the potential for joy in our reality and even enjoying what we would call our less than likable attributes and not judge ourselves. I mean, Jill and I, in every single podcast episode that we've done, this is like baseline foundational for us. Like, don't take yourself too damn seriously, you know, even in the ways that we've been hurt. I mean, whatever the situation is, that level of compassion and that level of unconditional love gets to override everything. You know, even if I look in the mirror and I see my mother staring directly back at me, you know,
Mm.
and it freaks the crap out of me, you know, that gets more love, not less. And and I get to really see what that is, you know, because there we do have DNA and it's amazing to me some people like my cousin now that she's aging I've seen her, like, on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh my god, she looks exactly like my aunt." You know? And I think
And this is not meant as a compliment. I'm taking it.
no, it's perfectly fine, and she's
Okay.
beautiful, but I'm shocked because I
Okay.
think it's my aunt.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, and some people are their DNA and the way our physical characteristics are, we do look and this has happened multiple times, and I guess I just haven't gotten over the shock of that sometimes. And I'm just like, wow, look at that, right? And so I wonder, like, you know, do I look like my
So cute. I
mom?
I love this because I just imagine this pattern going on there of the visual effect of us as we age and oh my god and kind of thing. I'm not gonna say I haven't had some of that, but I mean yeah. Sometimes I look at the mirror and I'm like oof, yeah. Gotta call my person and see what I can do. No, we're just teasing, but anyway, yeah, that's so big. It's why, and it's so interesting just to reflect on the idea that any of us that are sort of like gravitating even to the name of this episode, turning into our parents, is just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, right? I sense that somebody that would resonate with that in a like, oh my God, me too, are very passionate about being their own one
Yeah.
and are really excited about the idea of maybe breaking the mold. And yes, I'm the child of these people, but I am my own person, right? And really wanting that authority and that personal freedom, which are such a common theme in our episodes of you are you, right? I'll just put a little plug in to kind of emphasize this. You guys, identical twins. They were one zygote at one point that split. That's how they're technically identical. They are still very individual. One can be very outgoing and one can be quite shy. One can be amazing, talented at music and one is, can't hold a tune, right? There's still that soulfulness that's in there. So
Yeah.
you have a whole bunch of different individuality and uniqueness and all these cool factors that are only you. You are not a cookie cutter of your parents. And shocker to some people, your kids aren't a cookie cutter of you either. This whole mini me thing that some parents have. And I'm just like, did you want to be just like your mom? Or did you want, as a man, did you want to be just like your dad? Because what is this spell you have on you that this little boy is just like his dad or this little girl is just like her mom? No, they're not. They might have similarities, but again, I'm always gravitating toward originality and uniqueness because I think that's freedom in that. But
Yes.
I think that's shocking. Oh, I'm nothing like my parents. Oh, but your kids are just like you guys. Okay, got it. Have fun.
It's fascinating to just have this conversation and I was thinking about when you were sharing the things I try out or what I consider normal, I do get from my family of origin and from my experience here. And in a healthy developmental cycle,
Hmm.
I end up coming to choice points where I make decisions about whether I want to be that way or not.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's had their developmental cycle interrupted in one way, shape, or form. And some people are better at navigating that than others, right? That's okay. Let's just like accept that on some level. It's like, it's all right. It doesn't mean if you missed that developmental cycle choice point that you can't take it now.
Never too late. For developmental opportunity. Yeah.
Because it's, you know, as I've gone back and look at ways that I'm not living in a way that I want to live, I go back and I need to untangle some of these stories and patterns and unconscious things, and that's been an important part of me embracing and being my unique, like super cool human being here, right? Galactic and everything else, right? Like it's me, my meanness. And so that I get to make sense of too. And so that's why sometimes it's like, oh my God, am I my mom? Or, you know, for men, oh my God, am I my, you know, my dad? And even me, oh my God, am I my dad? Because those patterns, you
Yeah.
know, that was quite
Love
the model that right? And I chose between what I saw modeled, what looked better to me as a kid, right? Made lots of choices. And so I get to untangle all that and really embrace those choice points. And so sometimes the oh my God is when I'm thinking about the negative aspects of my parents. And I was like, that's completely unacceptable. And there's this idea that I'm locked in, and I was like, no effing way.
and
We are
and
not locked in.
And you're correct. Because, I mean, if you really look at, if there is this feeling stuck of, oh, well, we're destined to become our parents, number one, it's not true.
Yeah.
There are patterns that you might pick up and, nature and or nurture that you are modeling that look a lot maybe like your parents. But the freedom of choice, the free will is always there. Developmental opportunities are always there. More reflection, more growth, getting better at that, right? I am more hyper vigilant given some of the, in my opinion, overdoing it that one of my parents does. I am more self-aware of, okay, did I just do that? Did I just kind of almost like over help or over offer, myself in my is assumed intimacy kind of with somebody I just met? My mom is classic for that, but it also is what makes her so amazing. My mom has never met a stranger ever. And I'm kind of that way too, right? But I get that sometimes it's like charming and sometimes it's like, okay, like we're at a dinner party and I don't know you. You know what I mean? Still, you're too much or whatever. Anyway, so this opportunity that we have to, again, in our theme of everything we do, reflect, be self-aware. Did you feel cringy to you in that moment? Is that accurate? Is there anyone you can ask for some feedback, again, that you trust? That's a safe space. Did I overdo it in that conversation? I felt like I was the only one talking. I mean, literally ask somebody, right? And take it in and don't get defensive. Just, it's their opinion. They might be right, they might be wrong. It's still good information for you to have if you do want to get better and not turn into the version of your parents that you don't want to turn into.
Yeah. And let's just, get rid of the perfectionism that
Mm,
we all have stuff. We all have stuff that we like. We all have stuff that we don't like. And I know this came up in one of our earlier episodes, but DNA is changeable. You can disagree with me. Have at it.
oh, I do agree. Yeah, it's starting a building blocks. It's not as rigid as we sometimes think it is. We are human. The human template is highly dynamic and highly influenced, including by ourselves.
And we are getting to a place, and this is my direct experience, that we are getting to a place that our ability to affect our DNA in super positive ways. Some people have done it in negative ways. Okay, right? But I know from what I do and who I am and what I witness, we have the ability to change ourselves, our DNA, in super positive ways, and it's actually repairing damage that has been done. So if you're not open to that, consider whether you want to be.
Mm, that was good.
So I will challenge that. And I'd be happy to have a conversation about it too, because this would be fun for me because it's so real. It's like you couldn't tell me this isn't a pencil, right? Mechanical, right? But it's so that's how real it is for me. And everybody can do it. It's not exclusive. Some
Yes.
people that are more practiced at it,
Yeah.
and there are ways for us to develop those muscles, and it all has to do with what we talk about, the essence of who we really are as God moving through us as us,
And what we'll allow ourselves to be, which we
getting out of our way.
consistently underestimate, getting out of our own way. Yeah. And this is where the meta part of metaphysical to me gets really, really exciting. And I get really passionate about it because it doesn't, it's really utilizing to our advantage and the advantage literally of the human race where where there is flexibility, where there is adjustment and untapped potential. To me, that is such a metaphysical topic when it comes to physiology, when it comes to psychology, when it comes to spirituality and theology. There's a lot of room to play in these things. So, if somebody were to come on and counter us in terms of there maybe a geneticist or something saying you cannot change your DNA, well, maybe what I would say then is I don't have to actually change your definition of genetics to get a powerful physiological outcome that you would not have predicted.
Mhm. Brilliant.
See what I'm saying?
And there are science. I mean, Joe Dispenza, there are people out there that have measured changes. However you feel about Joe Dispenza, I don't listen to him, but what I hear is that there is science-based epigenetics, right? It's a field that what people would call science, it's where science and spirituality are meeting on some level. And I'm not going to talk a ton about this because I can't speak intelligently or knowledgeably enough about it, but I experience it all the effing time.
Yeah, me too. And I really, I have a lack of enthusiasm. How is that for euphemism? About some of the poster boys and girls and ladies and men for metaphysical. I mean,
Yeah.
Greg Braden. I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of some of those biggest names of people that were like, well, they were this, and then when they say something metaphysical, now we know it's true, and they have the science. And sometimes I look at. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I hear that
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of people that are dedicated to the kind of meta realms of this reality. They they hang their credibility on, in my opinion, very incredible, uncredible
Mm,
individuals. So yeah, I actually get concerned when somebody gets, they get a cancer diagnosis and then they go on the Joe Dispenza kind of, bandwagon. And I'm just like, good luck. And I really hope it goes well. I don't study those individuals, but what I've heard and the outcomes that I've seen with clients that have been devoted to some practices and ideas like that, they what I've seen is they overpromise and underdeliver all the time. And there's a lot of very fuzzy information that sounds like science and sounds like facts that ends up being very disempowering. And that really bums me out because their audiences are huge.
yeah, I love this because this is where I just want to kind of emphasize this. We'll talk about this all the time because it's so integral into how we interact with our world and what kind of life we lead. If I actually honestly can't listen, don't want to listen to either Greg Braden or Joe Dispenza. This is absolutely no disrespect to either man. And I do believe that, well, if I could or was guided to go listen to them, I would learn something. And the key here is not to give away our inner authority or
Yes.
think that there's outward magic, right? This is that thing that we will continually dwell on and encourage you to develop your own discernment mechanisms. And we talked about this in 30 about being susceptible out of desperation. And it's like if you've got something like that where you're looking for a solution to something medical, go back and listen to, 30 because there's some really great
Yeah.
information there that can loosen up some things for you and I think would be very helpful. And always, I'm gonna say it, fucking pay attention to that, man. Like, I don't like to use like real F bombs here, just pretend ones, shortened ones. But in this case, I will use it very deliberately because if I'm gonna get fiery about anything, it's like I am so committed and dedicated to helping people be who they are and use their own skill sets and intuitive mechanisms and knowings like that. I will stand beside you. I will cheer you on. I will say, that doesn't seem right. Look
Yeah.
a little deeper and see what's happening. He is not the solution. He may interesting, present ideas that may help you to know something about yourself. And that may end up in a miraculous healing for you, but it's not about him.
No. There's an overconfidence, there's an over personalization of the solutions to them, and that's partly the marketing, that's partly the shtick. And it
Say that
invades.
again. Say that one more time. I want you to say that again, please.
I don't know if I can say it again. There's an over personalization of the solution that
Over
disempowers
over personalization
of the
of a
solution, that,
solution.
that they're the master creator.
Over personalization. There's something here. Over personalization, because this goes back to how we're susceptible. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
No,
it
no,
felt
no.
very
This
important to stick my nose in there. Oh, over personalization, which makes it relatable, which allows trustworthiness to come in, perhaps where it's not founded.
And then the burden of proof to the recipient of their answers or wisdom is oftentimes highly based on whether they like the person. There's a whole bunch of people I like that don't have real solutions for me, but I like them. So there again, we're back to episode number 30 in that way, but I get really uncomfortable when of any type of solution provider when it's like without me you wouldn't be where you are. But I know we could do a really well-designed blind, double-blind study that would prove that the same thing was offered to these other people and they didn't get the results.
Yeah.
So then is it about that person? Probably not. It's highly affected by the recipient. So I don't like it. When even like the hairstylist says, yes, it's me. Well, I also have good hair. I
Well,
don't
it
think so.
it
You
just
see what I'm
makes,
saying? So it's
yeah.
it's it's both, and I don't want to leave that part out. So when I see someone very successful, it's all about them, them, them. Oh, they did this, they do that. I love them, I like them, etc. Well, where's the you in the equation? Because I know you're a huge part of it, and they're not helping you see the you part of it, and you're not interested apparently in seeing the you part of it. But this is very related to not turning into our parents too, because we're claiming our ownership. We're owning ourselves in every equation of life.
It is so empowerment model based
Yes.
versus the alternative where there's, I mean, I'll say guru based. And, the guy might be humble or not. Like I said, I don't know that I've ever listened to him for more than a minute, if even that, either one of those men, just because that's not where I've been guided. But empowerment model. And this is another thing that Jill and I very much are like so passionate about, empowerment. which is you. It's you, you, you. And it's a collaborative, co creative, relational thing whenever I have a success in interaction with somebody else. And with practitioners or people I listen to, anybody, it's like, do I feel more of me? That's such a great criteria. Or do and I don't know. I had dinner with some friends last night, and it's so funny sometimes because I was like, I got in the car afterwards, and I was like, that's weird. I feel crappy about myself, you know. And I didn't go anywhere with it, but I was like, huh, wow, I had a really good time. That's interesting. I'm gonna let that go. But empowerment, paying attention,
Mhm.
I not being anybody else than me. Even though I have a stronger likelihood to look like my siblings or my parents, that's another one we can also look like our siblings and to really celebrate that. But I mean, how many people have, said, "Oh my god, you look exactly like blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Really? How does that happen?" I don't know exactly. I haven't really looked into that, but that's not an unusual circumstance. Is
Yeah.
that my mannerisms? Is that my look? Is it my energetic soul signature? It could be a lot of different things.
And the appearance is just one aspect of it, right? Um, Actually, this might be a parenting tip or a grandparent tip, or any of you that interact with parents. I had a huge awareness with the same child, Georgia, when she and I we have a weird number of similarities. I mean, that's the child that when I came to their sixth grade, mileathon or whatever, and that was my first interaction meeting her teacher. And she said, "Well, I know whose mom you are." And I was like, "Oh, okay." You know what I mean? So Georgia and I kind of see it sometimes, but not as I see more of the differences than I see the similarities, but there are
Mm,
physical similarities and there are energetic complementary similarities as well. So in some ways, I recognized with her when she was a teenager, we are too similar, and it's creating a repelling energy
mm,
in her. And I was, for myself, reflecting on, I had that with my mom. I love to be helpful to people. It's probably one of my favorite things. But her wanting to help me and wanting to help strangers became a huge source of just tremendous instant irritation that wasn't rational or logical,
mm,
right? But I was repelling it as a teenager with my mom, and I was recognizing if I don't try something different here, I am missing out on an opportunity to have a different relationship with Georgia than I have with my mom. So I intuitively knew the next time I picked her up from school to go, Georgia, I know everyone says we're similar and stuff, but we are different in a lot of ways too. And she literally kind of looked at me because I think she was probably 13, maybe 12 at the time. And she just listened. I felt like it was the first time she listened to me in months. And I said, and I just rattled, I said, think of like you are so artistic. I don't have that. You're way more patient in situations with people than I am. And I just kind of gave a whole bunch, positive and negatives. I'm better at this. You're not as good at that. You're really good at this. I'm not good at that. And I felt like it reset
mm,
our connected energy in a way that I was basically consciously and unconsciously letting her know, you don't have to push me away for what we're similar. I'm gonna take the energy out of that rope. I'm
mhm,
not going to pull on it my way, and I'm not going to continuously talk about how we're the same. It changed our relationship. And I had to do the same thing with my husband. When I would hear him say, "Well, you're just like your mom," or "You guys are exactly the same," I literally said, "I need to talk to you for a minute." I pulled him in the other room and I said, this is a hypothesis I have. I probably use those exact nerdy, sciencey words. And he goes, "Ooh." got it because he's been with me in my mom's relationship since I was 17 years old. That's how long I've known Jeff, and I'm 55 now. We go way back. So
Yeah.
he knows that tension and that push pull and a bit of that still repelling kind of energy. I feel like, oh my God, I don't want to be that. You know what I mean? Even though my mom is really nothing but lovable and even likable in a lot of ways, from a daughter or a child's perspective, it reads different. So then he stopped playing that card with me and Georgia. And our relationship, it wasn't instant closeness, but it got more neutral than negative. And it did change the nature of our relationship.
Wow, that is a significant
It's big, right?
addition there.
It worked.
I think about it from because I've got my own, I'm just kind of like looking back with my own relationship with my mother, and then I think about it in terms of Georgia, and there's almost like a powerlessness from that teenage perspective
God.
that I have to be this and that I'm getting put in a box. And that, especially when your hormones are acting up and starting to engage,
Mm,
that's torturous. It so doesn't allow for a level of individualism
yeah.
that's crucial and that part of somebody's developmental cycle. And that is wow. So anybody that has kids, just think about that for a moment.
Or are a supportive, nurturing figure that is parent like, right? I mean, teachers, aunties, uncles, all of us have the opportunity to be kind of an older and hopefully wiser, nurturing force in another person. And sometimes these dynamics play out. So it's not just for parents, but as you were mentioning that part, Janet, it also reminded me that I think subconsciously, or maybe as an inner child level, there was a version of competitiveness that I felt with my mom. It's like, well, you're such a effing good helper. I mean, you help strangers. You figured out how this guy's lawnmower can get fixed, and you're just sitting in the hairstylist chair and you're fixing everybody's problems. They don't even know them, and they don't know you. They're like, yes, Pat, that would be great. I'm like, God, it may have been received by me as, well, how am I going to be helpful in the world? She's way better at this. I'll never be like that. And I don't know if I want to be like that, helping strangers. And that kind of like, they didn't even ask you, mom, you know? Um, nobody asked you, you know what I mean? But it could have been a sign for me of I feel stuck because I want to be the helper, and I don't know how to do that my way when you're this bright, shiny light of that,
Mhm.
right? So I figured it out, and I was able to retell my story of what she was. My mom was not an annoying busybody. She is a deeply caring angel on earth. I didn't see that till I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then I softened and I was like, oh my God, she's beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I retold my story and it
Mhm.
helped my relationship with her. And yes, it still annoys me sometimes, but I let my heart soften. But some of us never do that with our parents, and some of us are really missing out on opportunities with our children or other younger humans that we can assist and cheer on and support and guide.
Mhm.
That honors them, that gives them and supports them and inspires their individuality. Well, your mom's really good at this, your dad's what do you feel like you want to be great at? What's your version of that? Because sometimes we don't see it for ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. I can relate to that too. My parents, I heard this so many times. I'd go to weddings of friends or cousins or relatives of some sort, and they would talk about my parents as the stable influence in their life that kind of gave them permission and helped them in ways that nobody else did on the planet. and change the whole trajectory of their lives. I mean, that's how they would talk about my parents. I get goosebumps just talking about it. And I'm like, I think I felt as a kid. I mean, look what I do as a profession. You know, I have that too, and it is a little confusing thinking like the parents have the market on that. You know, and there isn't room for
Mhm.
me as a child. You know, and it's also that thing about the way I do it is way different than my parents, way different, and sometimes that level of individuality, you know, I remember my dad in particular. Oh, my ex got so pissed off about this, but, you know, we'd be doing projects or whatever, and he would take stuff out of her hands because, like, "This is the way you do it." You know, and she'd just be like, "Grr," you know, that really triggered something within her. But my point in that is there was this way to do it, and that was part of the umbrella that I grew up with, that and it was a good way, but it might not have been my way. And so I think in that competitiveness and the similarities, this is another thing to consider is how to encourage younger ones that level of individuality and let my good ideas sit on the shelf for a bit and see what kind of good ideas this young person may have that I don't, you know?
That's so good. It brings in the vulnerability and the learnability, if that's even a word, that we have from anyone at any age, from any experience set, et cetera. We can all learn something from everybody. And I will add, because this part gets left out for a lot of people, there's always something you have to teach someone else. We all have something amazing and relevant to teach another person. So keep that cycle going. Don't just be a sponge sucking up water. Drain some of your water here and there, people. Feed some flowers, you know? It's if we underestimate what we have to give and what we have to contribute in everything and anything.
Yeah, that's that hesitancy or holding back when I get, like, a little nudge, and literally it feels like that sometimes, like somebody's, like, pushing me from behind. It's like,
Yeah.
"No, no, it's yours," and I use that metaphor of, you know, like, God giving me the baton because it's mine to run like hell, right? Like, "Nope, this is yours to speak up here," and, um, and you're right about that. I
Yeah.
mean, we're never gonna hit the level of collaboration and co-creatorship and true honor and respect and come up with some really brilliant ideas
Yeah.
about how to live and relate and create in our world in very original ways because it requires, you know, an interaction with that. So that's a great reminder. It's that, you know, where are you on that spectrum? It's like, whoa, like even it out a little bit. We're co-creating here. We're both important. A give and a take, a give and a take, a give and a take.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
The reflection that you gave about aunts and uncles and things like that, describing your parents in such a flattering and positive way, and then your awareness that you actually, you know, have a lot of that positivity and that role that people look to you as and how you view yourself. Um, I like how we started off the conversation by turning into our parents as like, oh my God, no, you know, and now we've sort of come around full circle. But also, hell yeah. I mean, the parts of our parents that maybe some of us are at a different willingness to see the positive aspects of what our parents are, or in some cases were, for some of you that have lost your parents.
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibly healing and wholeness that can come about from that. I can easily come up with a story that I, as a soul, wanted to be a helpful, loving, and hopefully wise being on the planet. And what greater two parents to pick as their oh my god as their way of doing that. I nailed it. And that didn't have to mean they're perfect. Of course they're not, and neither am I. But oh my God, so great.
I have that too. I've had multiple times in my processing or my self awareness moments where I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I just could see and feel and know the power of that. And I know I've shared this before too, but anybody that's seen my parents and I in the same room, the love is so huge. I
Mm.
mean, you could feel it. You could feel their love. You could feel their pride. And, that with all the other stuff,
Yeah.
that's the foundation. And I
Yeah.
got stuff in my closet, I'm not pretending I don't. And some of
Yeah.
it was, pretty big stuff, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that that wasn't there.
Yeah. Thank you for including that part too, Janet, that for anywhere that our parents let us down, or in some individuals, their parents literally harmed them, emotionally, physically, etc. I know that God's love in our heart is big enough to be able to acknowledge that truth alongside the the positive attributes that they did offer us and the world. Um, I have so much compassion and sadness for individuals that where their parents were a version of greatness outside of the family, but inside the family they got a almost like a monster, opposite side of the coin of that. So they never got the best they feel, and they might be right that they never got the good side of their dad or their mom, but they saved that for the rest of the world. That has to be a real feeling of having been cheated, and the deception and the inauthenticity of what their parents were. Anyway, so I'm just offering a lot of love and compassion, and uh, to the degree I can, understanding that that's got to be a very difficult relationship in terms of being a child of parents like that.
Yeah. And I wanted to add to that that's healable within you.
Yes, only that's the only place for healing of that.
Mhm,
They can be past for decades. You don't need them to heal from that.
mhm.
This is a solo project. The
It
pain
is.
didn't get there in a solo way, but you resolving it. What word would you say? Transmuting it, transcending it, Jana? What would you say?
Those work. Just literally moving into a different state also is possible.
Yeah.
And literally, like, very gently, like, letting it go. I just get the version of interesting, like, when people leave ashes and they're like I just saw, like, a boat and you're just, like, leaving, like a lotus flower, with the ashes, you're just letting it go and you're letting it float away because that's
Not
not what's
yours
happening
anymore.
now.
It's not yours anymore. It's not in your present. It doesn't have to be part of your present. Let it be behind you.
Quite literally, and there's something about watching it float away, whether it's a balloon, whether it's there's something about it where you see yourself separate from that.
Mm.
It's very powerful where you are autonomous and sovereign, and your love is so big that anything is transmutable and changeable.
That's huge.
Lots of identities disappearing and moving away, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
And
that's what is
and
identity.
it is that straightforward. We are not our pain. We are not our disappointments. We are not our unsuccessful experiences. They are a part of our journey that we have had, and we don't need a reason for it. It's part of our fabric, but it doesn't identify us. We don't have to over personalize that or over identify with it. We are always more than our pain. We are always more than our grief, and we are always more than our greatness. It's a very strange reality here. It's very wild, a very unique experience offered. Very complicated.
It's so true. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. What a beautiful conversation, and I hope people received what, maybe opens their heart a little bit, softens rough edges, allows them to find different pockets of internal joy and possibility. Yeah, it's good.
Be gentle with yourself, you guys. If you re-listen to this, you will get a whole other layer. And some of you, like, yes, I'm going to put it on repeat now. And some of you are like, I'm going to give myself a couple days. This is a lot to swallow, and that's okay. But I just highly encourage repetition, maybe especially with this episode, because there's a lot of depth to this one, and the wounds, the parent-child wounds on both sides of that coin are just some of the biggest ones that we have, and the opportunity to reflect on it differently, look at it differently with love and with maturity, emotional maturity, and more self awareness is a gift you give yourself, and it's a gift you give every relationship you have.
Amen to that.
Mm. Thanks, everybody. All right. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, spreading the news that there's some good stuff over here. And we do not make it about us. We're talking about you. We'll use ourselves as examples, yes.
Right. And we have some good ones, right? Because 'Cause we're human too.
Yeah, and we've got, good decades of stories and experiences to share. And we do it in a way with so much humility, I think, and that's part of our self-awareness and just bravery, I guess, and courage and strength. But yeah, I don't hope my most vulnerable story is, the cat story is just embarrassing. I'm just like, the fact that I got all weird during something so serious. And I'm just like, oh my God, Jill.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jenna.
everybody. Thanks, Jill. Bye.